What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the next video in the series of how to get started in real estate investing. Today we are going to be talking about fixing and flipping and hopefully all the things that you need to learn before you jump into it and lose a bunch of money. Fixing and flipping is a great strategy. I don't want to start this off on the wrong foot. You can make a lot of money in fixing and flipping. You just need to make sure you're doing it the right way and obviously doing it in the least amount of risk as possible. Because out of all the strategies we're going to cover in this series, this one comes with a lot of risk, but it does have a lot of reward. So, starting off with what exactly is fixing and flipping. Fixing and flipping can create significant active income, but it can also come with real risk if you don't know how to find great deals. And so please make sure to refer back to the other videos in this series if you don't know what acquisition is or which strategies to start in. I'm a big advocate of people starting with wholesaling to create active income, and then at a certain point you get really good at acquiring good discounted property deals or even great deals, which is where you can then start to fix and flip. And that's what I'll be covering today, so hopefully you guys don't make the same mistakes that I made back in 2022. So just a reminder, acquisition gets you in the door, exit strategy is how you get paid. So the first video we covered was all about wholesaling. The second video here is about fixing and flipping. The next video after that is about buying and holding, and then senior year is where we really just go crazy. We'll cover a bunch of different strategies, and I'll tell you all about the different ways of how you can do this business once you have the main foundation set. And so just to make sure we're on the same page, acquisition is really the hardest part of this business, finding a good deal. Once you do that, then the rest of the strategies fall in play pretty easily or self-explanatory. So to talk about what a successful fix and flip actually is, we're going to start off by saying that you buy a property below market value with enough room for profit. Meaning that you find a deal that has enough spread for you to put in some renovation into it and sell it for more money. You create a renovation plan that adds value, not just random cosmetic upgrades. This is not where we take HGTV and start to throw together a bunch of different ideas or go out to Floor and Decor for a weekend getaway and all of a sudden magically we're real estate investors. This is where you have to have full understanding and actual strategy to be able to turn what is old condition, or what we say is current condition value, and you make it after repair value, which is renovated. You're going to manage the rehab or hire somebody that does while controlling your timeline and budget. That is highlighted green for a very specific reason. The number one killer of all things in real estate investing, specifically fixing and flipping, is mismanaging money, contractors, timelines, and budgets. After that, you sell the finished property for a profit based on the after repair value. Your profit is made when you buy, not when you sell. That is another huge nugget. A lot of people think that you're making money when you sell these properties for more than what you purchased it for, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, you make your investment and the profit when you purchase the property. So the better the deal, the better the profit, but that's based off of the acquisition, not the disposition and exit strategy. And then also too, just a quick note, the better the deal, the more room you have for mistakes. And if you haven't done a fix and flip before, typically my rule of thumb is just to add $5,000 on your budget just because, but as you're first getting started, you don't know what you don't know. So if you didn't get an inspection done, you aren't able to see the roof condition, the plumbing, the electric, AC, windows, foundation. So we always want to make sure we get an inspection done during an inspection period. Spend the $300, $500, $1,000 to get all of the inspections done so you know truly what you're getting into and you can create the best estimated bid for this project. And I say estimated just because nothing is ever concrete. You're not going to get a quote for like 60 grand and it's exactly $60,000 on the dot. It'll end up being something where it ends up more than likely plus or minus 5K on that number. If you have a really good contractor or project manager, you might even be able to do it for a little bit less. Finding great deals is the number one skill every successful flipper must master. So that's why this is the second video in the equation. This is why I personally think wholesaling is the best starting point. If you're following along so far in the playlist, what ends up typically happening is you find a really good deal that instead of making 10, 15, 20,000 on a wholesale, that same deal you could make 5 to 6x fixing and flipping. So in that case, it'd kind of be foolish not to flip it. You have enough spread that you can make mistakes. Even if you were to go into a joint ventureship with another investor that has flipping experience, you're going to make more money than you would wholesale. That is typically when I say fix and flip makes the most sense. So just to summarize, you're taking a distressed property with potential and turning it into a move-in ready home that buyers are willing to pay a premium for, or otherwise known as retail value. And your job is to create value and get paid for the transformation of the property from as is current condition value to after repair, remodeled, renovated value. Some key terms I've already been throwing around a few of them today. After repair value, otherwise known as ARV, is what investors say, so we can differentiate what a property's value is after it's been renovated. The maximum allowable offer is going to be the MAO. We have to factor in a lot of things as fix and flippers: the rehab budget, the holding costs, the closing costs, which includes commission, right? Profit margin on a deal, cash on cash return if you're doing a BRRRR method or refinancing later on. Scope of work, otherwise known as SOW. You'll hear this a lot with contractors and project managers. These are some of the basic key terms just to get you in the door and to get you understanding of things as they're happening. And obviously, as you get more advanced, there might be a few extra things, but this is at least the entry level to fixing and flipping terminology. So I've said a few things that might make you think, well, Ryan, why the heck would I go after fixing and flipping? It sounds scary. It sounds like there's a lot of risk. I just want to wholesale forever. That's fine. There's nobody telling you that you have to fix and flip. Usually it's actually the alternative. It's more people wanting to start with fixing and flipping because they've seen other people do it, because they've seen the TV shows, or even because they just want to and they feel like they've got better design skills and construction background and they don't want to waste time wholesaling. None of those are right or wrong. The part that I just want to make sure of is that you don't take an unnecessary risk or make an uneducated decision. And so with that said, why fixing and flipping? Well, to start, to keep it as non-biased, as neutral as possible, there's higher profit potential per deal rather than wholesaling. So like I mentioned in that example, rather than going and doing the $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 wholesale fee, you might find that the same exact transaction could offer you 50, 60, 80, 100,000 or more if you flip it. And so with that said, we create value through strategic renovations. This is not custom finishes. This is not going in saying, I want to make it the same home as if I would live in. This is a business and strategy. We build wealth while generating active income. Just to make sure we're on the same page, this is not passive income. Wholesaling and fixing and flipping are active. There's very few things in this industry, more often that we'll talk in the senior year category, that will actually lead to passive. Most things are going to be hands-on and active income. And then another reason why fixing and flipping is that you gain experience analyzing deals and managing projects, which is great. This is going to lead to a skill set and ability to make more money down the road, or even take a bigger leap and do luxury fix and flips or developments or other things that require a lot more capital, which is awesome if you have this skill set. And then your profit is determined by the deal you buy, the acquisition. So all of these reasons are why people choose fixing and flipping. Again, I just want to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons with the right opportunity, not just because you hope it's going to work out. The goal isn't really to eliminate risk here. The only way I found that you could really do that in fixing and flipping, which I should put an asterisk around, is if you go the route of joint venture, meaning maybe you go on the acquisition front and you bring the deals to the table, and maybe the buyer that has purchased your first 3 to 5 fix and flip wholesale deals, meaning they're the buyer, you're the wholesaler, if they're going to come in and purchase a few deals from you, maybe on the 6th deal, the 10th deal, the 15th deal, whatever it ends up being, you end up doing a joint venture. Meaning instead of a $10K wholesale fee, you assign it at cost and you go in and you split the profit, whatever that percentage may be. That absolutely is probably the lowest risk option for you to get started in fixing and flipping. And that's actually how I used to flip when I first started doing this business. I had 3 or 4 operators that I would go in and partner with. They would bring the capital, or they'd bring the renovations or the construction project management, and I would bring the deals. That's always been my strong suit, and I do believe to this day that is the most valuable piece in the entire transaction, because without the deal, the rest of it all kind of falls apart. So back on track here, the goal isn't to eliminate risk. There's risk in every bit of fixing and flipping, even in a joint venture. The goal here is to manage the risk. If you can manage and control the outcome, meaning you're not buying bad deals or trying to force something into being a deal that's not, you will make a lot of money fixing and flipping. And so the skills that you're building are deal analysis and project management. And as you do more of these deals, it will start to compound with every flip you complete. So you'll learn something in every deal, and not every transaction will be the same. In fact, it's actually more repetitive in the wholesale game where you see the same 3, 4, 5 different things occur more often. In the fixing and flipping game, it's not usually the same outcome we see. It's usually every project has its own personality, characteristics, or mistakes that are made, and hopefully you have enough room to cover it in the profit which you got from the acquisition. So the skill set, again, is deal analysis, getting better at finding great deals. The best investors I know that fix and flip say no to more than they purchase, obviously. And then the more you could get skilled at project management and construction and timeline management, the more money you will make because you're doing projects faster. So let's talk about the process. Same as the last video in wholesaling. I'm going to try to keep every single one of these in the same kind of theme. The fix and flip process is find a profitable deal. If you have no idea how to do that, please reference one of the 4 videos in this playlist where I talk about the 4 different types of acquisition strategies or even buying from wholesalers. So you could find deals on the MLS and through agents like what I do. You could joint venture with somebody. You could find deals from wholesalers. You could go off market direct to seller. You could cold call, text, send mailers. You get the point. There's a lot of ways. The next step is that we analyze the numbers. The best investors move quick, meaning you do not take 3 hours to comp a property to come up with what the maximum allowable offer is. You're going in and finding the ARV, knowing the numbers of rehab, understanding holding costs, closing costs, and so on, to then get to the maximum allowable offer. I have a whole formula for this, which I'm happy to share with you inside of my real estate investing school if you need any help with that. Third step is you purchase the property. So this can be done with cash, with hard money, private money, however it is that you're purchasing the property, you're going in and fixing and flipping. I will just say this is typically not financed. It's not all that often that I see someone purchase a house conventional, FHA, VA, and flip it. More often than not, it is hard money that people use or cash. After we own the property, we complete the renovation on time and on budget, of course. And then we list the property for sale, close on it, and collect your profits. That is the summarized fairy tale, perfect case scenario option. Some deals don't always end up in that exact fashion. Obviously, you sometimes can't sell the deal for the price you expected. The renovation amount isn't all that right, and you were a little bit under budget. Sometimes there's concessions or things that just end up happening in a current economy where buyers need a little bit more help to purchase and they've got the leverage to ask for it. So there's a lot of things here that come with risk, which we already discussed. So this is the 6-step process for fixing and flipping as a generalized overview. Some common mistakes and misconceptions that I see with fixing and flipping. Number 1, this is one that I see all the time, people overpaying for the property. This is the number 1 reason that flips lose money, meaning that you went in and you over purchased a property. You paid more than what it was worth for what you need to put into renovations to make a profit on it. The next biggest mistake and misconception that I see is the underestimating renovation costs. Please don't guess. Get an inspection period. Get a contractor. Most people are scared for whatever reason to call a contractor, but they don't realize that contractors can give you a free bid. That doesn't mean that they're going to be the contractor that does the job. That doesn't mean it's going to be the roofer, the electrician, the plumber that will be the one that gets your business. This is for you to be able to do your own due diligence during an inspection or due diligence period, which is in the process of getting quotes on top of inspections. So get that free quote, make sure you have an understanding of what it will cost to renovate the home. And obviously, again, you have the ability to joint venture if you need to. Another big mistake I see people do is ignore holding and closing costs. They think it's going to be cheaper than it is. They don't have a realtor lined up, so they end up overpaying for commission to list it. They don't end up having the greatest hard money lender or private lender in place, so they end up overpaying on fees that they didn't understand what it actually was. The amount of people that don't realize what down payments and points and interest is with hard money is a very big concerning factor as to why I have the opinions I do about fixing and flipping. If you were to realize you had a 10% interest only payment every month with 1 point at the end of the transaction, you might get it into high gear, if you understand what I'm saying, and all of a sudden get deals done a lot faster. So it goes back to everything we talked about today. Using bad comps to estimate ARV, I see this pretty often too. People assume that their flip is going to be the best thing in the neighborhood and they could set the record for the highest comp. Depends on the economy and the market you're in, but a lot of the houses out there, now is not the time to set the record for the comps. Now is the time to use the comps that are also active, not selling, and pending, and figure out what it is that your true ARV is, rather than hoping for a miracle that may not happen. And then lastly, I think you guys get the point, but thinking every flip will be profitable, a lot of these transactions out there are not going to be home runs. They're going to be base hits. And that's assuming you're going all in on fixing and flipping. The strategy and approach that I personally recommend and what I take is going into every project as a wholesale on the acquisition side. And on the slam dunk home run deals, or let's even call it a triple, I'll be able to go out there and justify fixing and flipping it, which means that I'm very, very, very particular on the deals that I will flip. Otherwise, I'm not really interested in taking the risk that comes with it. All right, well, Ryan, you've talked a lot about a bunch of stuff with flips, and maybe I don't know if I should trust you or believe you or whatever, and I get it. I understand. Quite frankly, everything on the internet that I see, there's a lot of stuff out there nowadays that's extremely BS. People are pretending to be something that they're not. They don't show settlement sheets. They don't show tax returns. They don't show addresses. They don't show deals. Now, I want to be clear as I say all this stuff. I don't show this stuff to be like a piece of whatever you want to call it. I don't know if I can get banned on YouTube or not. I don't want to be that guy. I also don't want to be the guy that's over here flexing or anything like that. What I do want to talk about is that I've been in real estate for over 10 years. I've done hundreds of transactions and made millions of dollars. A lot of the stuff that I speak on is from firsthand experience. And so I, again, just want to put a disclaimer. I'm not the best fix and flipper. I'm not the guy that claims to be. I'm the guy that is really good at acquisitions, specifically without spending a bunch of money on marketing. And then I choose the exit strategy that makes the most sense based on the deal. So I've got a very, very specific buy box of what I will purchase myself as a fix and flip that I'm comfortable with. Everything else I do is typically wholesaling, and then not to get too far ahead, but foreshadowing, I make a good amount of money. So then I buy rentals, single family houses, and commercial buildings to offset my taxes with what's called cost segregation and accelerated depreciation. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the next video in this series. But for staying on topic today, fixing and flipping, I wanted just to show examples. This was a deal that I had bought. You could see I purchased it. Sale price is $423. That's not accurate. It was with like a $6,000 assignment fee to a wholesaler slash agent that brought it to me. So I paid them like $7,000, $6,000, whatever it was. And then there's also closing costs. So if we just call it $430,000, we put renovations of $80,000 into this deal. So my all-in cost after I had purchased it was about $510,000, and then we sold it for $635,000. Now that looks great. That looks like a lot of money, but that's not exactly what I profited on the transaction. When you factor in commissions to the buyer's agent, the closing costs and holding costs on the deal, as well as I did a joint venture with a general contractor on this transaction, which out of respect to them, I don't want to mention our splits and stuff like that. This 128 was a lot of my money that I originally put up coming back. So when people show big checks, a lot of the stuff you have to keep in mind, they might show a $100,000 check, but if they put out $60,000 of it to get the deal, which in this case, that's about what I did. I think it was like $56,000 or $57,000 to purchase the property out of pocket to a hard money lender, 10, 20% down, whatever it was, for them to bring the rest of it for me. This is me recouping all of that money and pretty much doubling what I had made. So this $128,000 was not all profit. This was my money back plus profit, which you can obviously still do the math on this. We made a lot of money. So in this example here, I thought it'd make a lot more sense rather than me going in and trying to purchase this and flip it as a wholesale. I decided to flip it as a project and renovation. And instead of making 10, 15K, I made 80,000, whatever it was, profit. This is what it looks like, right? I mean, there's a big fireplace here. This actually was the cleanest the house looked when we purchased it, to renovation, staged, nice and pretty. And I don't even want to take credit for it. My GC was awesome. She did an amazing job with designing it and putting it all together. And then we did the acquisition and the selling piece as the realtor and as the investor. And then just some more credibility. I've been on the TV shows. Shout out to Pace and Jamil. Appreciate them for the invite. I was on A&E, Triple Digit Flip. One of our projects that we did back when I was flipping a lot of homes was on the show. This is that project I just showed you with the big profit. We brought our agent investors community to the house so everybody could see it. And then I don't know who gave me the ability to use a jackhammer, but yeah, shout out to my team. And so real estate investing school is where I recommend most people go to learn more about real estate investing in general. I created this school a few years ago, school.com/real estate investing. We'll put right across here. Feel free to check it out. If you guys have any questions, I'm in there, or you could post them inside the school. My goal with this series is to show you a starting point. It's not to give you the exact blueprint or clarity of what to do. It's to give you a little bit of an unfair advantage that the general public typically doesn't have, because they're on this rat race of trying to figure out all this information on their own, that by the time you start researching and clicking on things, you're going to get advertised to across 50 different platforms on all different strategies. So stay focused, stay on the course. If you guys have any questions, post in my school or post in the comment section. If you've made it this far in the video, I really appreciate you just taking some trust in us and listening to what I have to say. I'll see you in the next one.